Okay, so here are the 8 players then. As you can see, you've got the top 4 in the world, top 5 as well with Stephen Bunting, a couple of our World Championship quarter-finalists in Gerwyn Price and Nathan Aspinall, and then one of our World Championship semi-finalists as well in Chris Dobey making up the list. Mark, your initial reaction, initial thoughts?
And well, Matt answered the question about whether Luke Littler could handle it. We know all of these can handle it. They've all played in the Premier League before. There's no debutants in there. I like the fact Chris Dobey's back as well, because obviously when you get omitted from the Premier League, you go out there, show a bit of positivity and get yourself back in. And yeah, it's going to be a great lineup, and looking forward to it getting going.
I think when we look at this, we can see, you know, why it was so hard and the decision-making has been incredibly tough. What was your reasoning when you look at maybe these 3?
Yeah, obviously, look, Price, Dobey and Aspinall, there are players above them in the rankings who haven't been selected. But we've looked at it in terms of big stage presence. We've looked at it in terms of popularity and the way that they can get a 10,000 crowd every Thursday going. We want people on the edge of their seats. We want people up and enjoying the darts, you know. And that's not to say that other players can't do that. You have to make a decision based on what you feel is right at the time. And the board has selected players who we feel will deliver that level of entertainment and that level of darting excellence every week. People will disagree with us, and that's, you know, that's the nature of it. And it's just part and parcel of sport now, the way that darts is under the microscope. Every decision will be analysed, and we may get decisions wrong, we may get decisions right, but ultimately the proof of the pudding will be in the numbers every week.
And I think you said it a minute ago, where some players will sort of feel unfortunate, really, and unlucky, when you've maybe got players like Nathan Aspinall, who we all love, by the way, but he could maybe say, well, I'm pretty fortunate to be in it.
He could, and maybe that's extra pressure for him. You know, if Nathan feels like he's got extra pressure on it, he knows when he produces that walk-on, he's got the crowd on his side, that he's got the perfect start to every game, but it's then up to him to carry that on, produce the performances that we've seen him do in the past, and go on and justify his place, you know, because if he doesn't do that, or if any of them don't do that, there's plenty of candidates for 2026 ready to jump into their shoes.
What were some of the reactions like from the likes of Nathan when you called him up and said, like, you're in the lineup this year?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, very grateful for the opportunity, thankful, you know, appreciative. They've all said, you know, we're determined to prove the decision right. We want to go up there and produce our best. Ultimately, we want every single player, whether it's the 8 that are in it or the 120 who aren't, producing their best darts, and they need that motivation to go up there and deliver at the highest level week in and week out. So, as I say, the guys who are in it, they know that there's a target on their back from all those who aren't, who want to be there.
Yeah, and we say it so often. Some of these guys, you like to Stephen Bunting, brilliant to see him back in. Nathan, they're sort of made for the Premier League, really, aren't they?
Yeah, particularly pleased with Stephen. It was a long time ago he was in the Premier League, and his career was he was in a low place 4 years ago. He's not just worked on his game, he's worked on his profile. Like Matt said, you need characters in the Premier League. He's got such a big following now on social media, and he's a great addition. And again, a good message to send out to players who are maybe nowhere near the Premier League at the minute, maybe not next year, but the year after. You keep working hard, the spot is always there for you.
Were there some tough phone calls to make?
There were, and you know, we obviously, people who we feel maybe felt that they had a chance, we make sure that they're informed either directly or via their management in advance, because it's not a nice way to find out if it's just the same way that, you know, that everybody else does. But it's all about bouncing back from disappointment, isn't it? You know, plenty of players who maybe sat at home thinking I should have been in there. Use it as a catalyst, use it as some motivation to go on and have a great 2025 and make yourself undroppable for 2026.
Yeah, and with players who are maybe ranked ahead of these 3, the likes of Dave Chisnell, Damon Heta was in there, Johnny Clayton as well. Was it more about the runs that they'd had on TV or on the runs they hadn't had, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, you know, for those players in particular, I know Damon hit a 9-darter at the World Championship, but probably none of the 3 of them got quite as far in the tournament as they'd have wanted to, or have maybe not had the years on TV that they'd have wanted to. But, you know, I don't want to sound like a stuck record. The doors aren't closed. Just because you're not in it this time around, there are plenty of opportunities, not just in the Premier League, but in other invitational events that could open up.
Is Chris Dobey a brilliant example of that? The door not being closed?
A brilliant example, obviously. He finished 7th in the Premier League, but that didn't tell the story. He acquitted himself well. He was very, obviously, grateful of the opportunity. He's gone away, missed out last year. Probably if he doesn't lose that game to Rob Cross, he goes back in. So the heartbreak there, but he works hard this year, had a good end to the year. And yeah, I'm glad to see him back. And like I said, see Luke Humphries a few years ago as well, missed out.
Yeah.
He had the best year of his career then now. Make yourself undroppable. And that's got to be the message to the other players now.
No Peter Wright in the Premier League for the first time in 12 years. No Michael Smith when he was world champion just a couple of years ago. Can it be a good thing? Can they take a little bit of a step back and not have, you know, this every Thursday night?
Yeah, I think there are players who have benefited from the break. You know, it is intense. There's a huge amount of travel, obviously nights in hotels, time on aeroplanes, time away from your family. The pressure's significant. And if perhaps you start badly and the weight starts to sit heavy on your shoulders, it can be quite an ordeal for some players. And it's also important for us to look at someone and think, if you're not ready, we don't want to expose you to that. because we've done it in the past with players where they've been put in the Premier League and they've really, really struggled, and it's set their careers back 3, 4, 5 years. You know, you mentioned, you know, people like Stephen Bunting, Webby.
You?
You finished me. I wasn't even thinking of you, Webby. But look, there are players for whom it is extremely difficult, extremely pressured. And yes, some might say, I want the opportunity, but we have to think of people's long term. You know, Luke Humphries, when we didn't put him in when everybody said he was ready, look at the year he went on to have afterwards. So the challenge to everybody who's been left out is go on and take the opportunity that you've got now to manage your schedule throughout the year and put yourself in position for the following year.
Yeah, let your darts do the talking,
Absolutely.
basically. How tough is it for some of the players who have, you know, not made the 8, and how will they be feeling, I suppose?
Yeah, they're gonna feel gutted, aren't they? And they're gonna, you know, some particularly players that are ranked higher, they're gonna think, well, I'm ranked, but that's not the way it works. It's the top 4 in the world, and it's picks. Put yourself in a position where you can't be ignored, and that's got to be the motivation, not just for them players, but anybody aspiring to be in the Premier League. If you don't make the top 4, then do something, win an event, and get yourself on the fringes, and you'll get selected.
Talking of being on the fringes, was there anyone else that you thought about, the likes of Mike De Decker, who, you know, picked up the World Grand Prix title?
I think Mike is an outstanding talent and is someone who I think undoubtedly we will see in Premier League darts in the future. We didn't feel he was quite ready. You know, there's a lot of tournaments throughout the year, and winning one, we've seen players in the past, you know, I don't want to embarrass anyone by naming them, but players like Ross Smith, Danny Nopper, Andrew Gilding, they've won TV tournaments, but you have to show that you can compete in the latter stages of tournaments on a regular basis. Doing it once is fantastic and something that you will always have against your name as a champion of a certain event, but to really be part of the elite, you have to be doing it on a regular basis over multiple years.
Matt, we can't not talk about the man of the moment in Luke Littler. I mean, what just an incredible 12, 13 months he's had. Could you have possibly predicted what has happened?
No, I mean, it's a sporting fairy tale, isn't it? Absolutely amazing to come through the junior ranks and to reach the World Championship final in your first senior tournament, and then to go on and prove that wasn't a fluke. But I think he won 10 events throughout the year. As I said, 2 or 3 more on TV. Won World Series, won Euro Tour. You know, no stage was too big for him. And then to go into the World Championship with a level of pressure and expectation for the first time ever. You know, it's easier when you're playing without pressure, without expectation. So, but to have to deal with that as well up here, as well as everything that's coming off your fingers when you're throwing the dart, absolutely testimony to what he is as an individual. Not only how talented he is, but how focused he is, how dedicated he is, and how well he applies himself to what he needs to do.
We were saying, weren't we, to have that level of pressure heading into the World Championship, being the favourite, but then managing to actually deliver.
And he managed it quite easily in the end, didn't he? Obviously, he was pushed to the side and set against Ryan Joyce, but he comfortably put his opponent aside. And during the year as well, he's lost a few games first round, and with that pressure, people are behind him. But people like to jump on people who are being successful as well, and he had to deal with that. And he's had a great approach all year, and to go and win the title, like Matt said, on the second attempt, you know, after getting to the final on debut, it's just incredible. And it's going to be more titles this year, that's for sure.
We've obviously seen it at the Sky events where, you know, especially in the Premier League, where venue after venue was just sold out. I mean, we couldn't even get tickets, could we, Mark? It was impossible. But tell us more about the Littler effect, because you've obviously seen it firsthand.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think events like the World Championship and the Premier League have been selling out for a number of years now, but it's the additional focus that's been brought onto them earlier on. You know, the World Championship selling out in an hour back in July, the Premier League way ahead on ticket sales leading into the World Championship, whereas usually the World Championship sells a huge number of tickets for the Premier League off the back of the coverage that it gets. But this year it was almost sold out beforehand. So I think it's just brought more eyes on the sport. It's brought a different generation of eyes on the sport, a very digital first audience, you know, which is fantastic for the future of darts, because these people won't just become darts fans. They'll buy a dartboard, stick it on the back of their bedroom door, and might be the next Luke Littler as well.
I've seen little kids getting the magnetic ones as well, you know, brilliant. What about all the talk about whether Luke can match Phil Taylor's record of 16 world titles, which is just ridiculous, by the way, but was this sort of bound to happen?
It's going to happen, isn't it? I mean,
because he's so young.
Yeah, he's won one and he's absolutely incredible, isn't he? But there's a long way to go, isn't it? And it's so competitive now. It's going to be tough. For him at the minute, it's just focusing on his immediate career, playing in big events, winning more titles, and he won't be thinking about records like that. He's young, fierce, he just likes playing. It's the immediate future for Luke. Those comparisons will always be made, though.
Yeah, do you feel like now he's got even more of a target on his back? I know he did last year, to be fair.
He has, but he'll deal with it. He's fine. He's last year he had it, and obviously he's gone from strength to strength. People debating whether would he get in the match play, because obviously he had to start fresh on the rankings. He was in by March, so he deals with everything. He's mature, he's level-headed, he's got good people around him, Like I said, yeah, you are right. There's going to be players gunning for him now, but they're going to have to produce some standard because we can see what he can do.
Yeah. How hungry do you think some of these players will be, Matt? Maybe, Luke Humphries, for example, who would have exited the Worlds, earlier than he would have liked.
Yeah, certainly. I think for a lot of the players that you see here, they haven't had the year that they would have perhaps wanted or expected because of the dominance of Littler and Humphries. Yeah. It was great to see Michael van Gerwen back towards his best, although he didn't start the final well. His latter few rounds before the Littler match were proper Michael van Gerwen, which we perhaps haven't seen for a couple of years. Stephen Bunting's had a renaissance, and the others are looking at it and thinking, this isn't going to be easy. I've got to apply myself properly. I've got to be dedicated. I've got to be focused. And also understand that there are so many events that you're not going to be able to win them all. You've got to deal with the disappointments, the setbacks. You've got to manage your schedule, and you've got to make sure you peak at the right time.
And just looking at these faces here, I mean, there are some real characters. The likes of Gerwyn Price, I think it was brilliant to see some of what we know he can deliver at the World. That match with Joe Cullen. He's box office to watch at times.
He is, absolutely. And also, I think what's great is the crowd reaction to Gerwyn now is a lot different to what it was a few years ago. People have seen he's kind of you always want a little bit of a pantomime villain, but he's kind of shedded that real aura that he had around him that made people turn against him a little bit. And I think you saw some real fair and balanced crowds. I mean, you can see him interacting with the crowd, enjoying himself on stage. And I think you've got to enjoy yourself up there. You've got to focus, obviously. But if you're not going to have a smile on your face, then people aren't going to have one back for you.
Is it a similar sort of, in a different way, though, thing with Stephen Bunting? Because we all go Bunting mental at times, but he's really got this army of fans behind him.
He has, and also, as Mark says, what he's done on TikTok and social media is fantastic because that's totally organic. He's done that all off his own back, and he's done it with creativity, he's done it with a smile on his face, and he's done it with a view of increasing his profile, which in the modern world of sport is such an important thing to do.
Yeah, they're all characters, aren't they, in a way?
Yeah, they are. And obviously, Stephen's the great example we just talked about, going away and not just working on his game. First and foremost, you want to win darts events, but you've got to be a character in the Premier League. You've got to have that profile and get across to the audiences, and all 8 players will do that.
Yeah, a number of former world champions in the lineup as well. I feel like Rob Cross is someone we just don't talk about enough.
Yeah, Rob had a really consistent year last year. I think he made 6 quarterfinals on TV. Couldn't get over the line into any semi-finals, which he'd have been disappointed about. But nevertheless, it did show that his game was in a place where he could win matches regularly. Probably, lost to his friend Scott Williams. Probably disappointed with that because it was early at Ali Pali. But nevertheless, over the course of the previous 12 months, he did enough to get himself back into that top 4. And he's someone who none of these will relish facing.
Yeah. Michael van Gerwen is someone you know very well, being in the same management stable. How will he have sort of responded to that defeat on Friday? I think on Saturday I saw him at another event, playing darts already, an exhibition or something.
Yeah, he's good. He gets upset immediately after, which you do. It's really raw, but he gets it. I think he'll dissect the tournament. Disappointed to lose another final, but delighted with how he's played because obviously he came in on the back of losing at the Grand Prix first round, the Slam, the Players' Championship. He had a lot to prove, and whilst he didn't win the trophy, he proved a lot of people wrong, and he'll be ready to go in the Premier League now. He's going to get himself rested, but it's a big year for Michael. But it was good to see him playing like that aggression back, because obviously it was a real struggle in October and November for him.
And Matt, you're used to it, but his sort of loser interview after just spoke sort of thousands, didn't it? Michael
is the definition of the phrase "form is temporary, class is permanent." You can put him in any professional environment and he conducts himself in an immaculate way. He will speak well, media, sponsors, fans. He has time for everybody. Obviously, he gets disappointed with losing. And when I spoke to him on stage when he took the runner-up trophy, his disappointment was that he felt during those first 4 sets he didn't do enough to make the game competitive. Yeah. If you look, the last 6 sets of that match were 3-all. So he knows in his head that he can do it. He's just got to overcome those demons that have perhaps hit him for the last couple of years when players like Humphries and Littler have come up to threaten his mantle. Yeah, he will be hungrier than ever, no doubt. How much are we looking forward to our Thursday nights from the beginning of February? Yeah, obviously, it's good to get going, isn't it? And seeing how players shape up in the first few weeks, and then you get to sort of week 5 or 6, the league table starts taking shape and you see what different pressures are on players. But look, it's going to be interesting. All players have played in the Premier League before. Granted, Stephen hasn't played in this environment, but he'll be used to after a couple of weeks. I'm sure it'll be a thrilling 17 weeks. He will love that Liverpool one, won't he? Well, of course he will. Of course That's the one he's penciled in. I think he played as a contender there a few years ago and really enjoyed that. But he's waited a long while to get back in, but he deserves a spot. And yeah, they all pencil
their home venue in, and Stephen will be looking forward to Liverpool.
And Matt, we're obviously sticking with the same format. You know, you feel like it's a format that works well.
Look, I think the format of producing a winner on the night is great for the crowd. They stay engaged to the end. From a TV viewer perspective, you get a result every evening. I get it when people say you see a lot of the same matches time after time. I also get it when people say, well, you're seeing the best players in the world playing each other time after time, which I think in most sports people want to do. But if you look over the history of Premier League darts, the format has evolved every 3 or 4 years, whether it's the number of players, whether it's elimination, contenders, etc. So, you know, there's something we'll always look at, but we feel it's good for now.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much, guys. Make sure you come and join us on Thursday night. All starts February the 6th, live in Belfast. See you then.